O'Neill, 2 L's. I serve the SGC under a General Hammond.
We're explorers. You see, we're from another planet.
The unstable vortex of a forming wormhole. Kawoosh.
Indeed.
Hello interwebs and welcome back to another episode of the Kawoosh podcast. And today we are talking about the 10th episode in season 1 of Stargate SG-1, the Torment of Tantalus. And I am Arne. As always,
I was
am
waiting
joined...
for it. And I am Evie, but the title of the episode is more important.
Yes, everything is more important than what we, us, might. Everything is
You
more...
want to redo that?
No.
The episode is called The Torment of Tantalus.
Yes, and we have a returning character in this one. So...
Is it a returning character if she hasn't been in the series yet, though?
Well, she's a returning character from the movie.
Okay. Well, yeah.
So is most of SG-1, so...
Okay. So, but we start on...
Yes, we open on an old school gate room. They are manually turning and charging the gate. And there is a soldier filming it on a Bolex camera.
Which is something... Now we're gonna show our age here. This is something that we had to, film our film projects on.
Yeah.
In school, you have to wind it up and then you can film for 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's a spring-loaded camera. So you have to manually... There are batteries for it, so you can run it on
Yeah, but
power,
they didn't give those to us
no.
students. No, we had to crank it up and then film 30 seconds and, and edit in camera.
But
I miss those.
it was 16 mil, right?
Yeah, but I love how they're manually turning the gate. There's an old camera there, and also just in case you weren't sure yet that this is old, there was this weird jazzy music underlaid under it, which wasn't really the vibe of the room. I felt like somebody just dug in the box, what do we have from music from 1945? We need it for this scene.
It's also a camera that doesn't record audio, so maybe they just were let's put something.
That is a
underneath.
good So Daniel is just watching this on TV and they digitized it, but because there is no sound on it, somebody's just put some piano on there. It's gonna be fine.
Because we have this really nice transition to sepia, which is, of course, if you want to show that something is old, it's sepia. And it is Daniel watching the footage on a TV in the meeting room.
Yeah, and the footage is sepia, not Daniel. I just wanted to
Well, he's bland. But... No, that's a bit unfair.
That's a bit unfair.
The footage apparently is from 1945. Daniel is fascinated because there are no notes and there are no conclusions for the tests they did, and as far as he knows, the research just stopped one day. So Jack enters the room and he wants to leave, but Daniel is still fascinated by the footage, and Daniel calls after him, and when he turns his head again to the TV, he sees that there is an image of an open gate and a diver, like an old school bell diver, being prepared to go into it, because it looks a bit like water, so it's not unlogical. And they watch as the diver steps in through the gate, and it closes, which cuts off the air hoses.
And then the cameraman somehow sort of knew it was going to happen because he was really fast in following that rope as it fell down. I mean, that was some really cool camera work, dude. And then they hold it up
oh no!
Oh no! And then, we cut to the credit. Not the credits. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. This is the first time I forgot to write down cut to credits because I was taking so many notes. I was behind.
We had to pause it. He had so many notes. No, but the chord breaks, and then we zoom in on Daniel going, basically, surprise Pikachu face, and then we cut to the opening.
Okay. Yeah. When we come back, a limo stops in front of a large house, and an older woman steps out of it. This is Catherine Langford, a returning character from the movie, and basically the person that hired Daniel in the first place. And she enters her house and is notified by the staff that someone is waiting for her. This is Daniel, and she is very happy to see him back. And Daniel notices that she is still wearing the amulet with the Eye of Ra on it.
Can we can we pause a little on the fact that she asks him, how long have you been back? And it turns out he's been back for 6 months. And he never even gave this woman a call who just jump-started the entire Stargate project. Like, Daniel, that is not... do you just stay at the base all the time? Like, does he have no social life?
I think so. I think
still rude.
I'm pretty sure it gets touched upon that he's one of the few. Of course, Teal'c doesn't really have an apartment, but at one point he does move into an apartment, and but I think Daniel has one, but he's never there. I think they make a point of that later on in the series.
Yeah, that also shows that this is a 90s show. Like, nowadays, if you had an apartment that you weren't using, you would cancel your rent and you would just move into the base. I mean,
don't know,
nobody has money for that.
Space archaeology pays a lot of money.
Does it though? Does it really?
I don't know.
I don't know.
But yeah, as far as Catherine knows, he was still on Abydos. Then we cut back to the SGC, where Hammond is looking for Daniel, but O'Neill doesn't know where he is.
I love how they're just like, they're so used to him always being there that the second he's gone, they're like, something is big,
Where's Daniel?
Something's wrong. Did everybody check all the bathrooms? Did everybody check, like, the canteen? Like, where is he? It's just...
And we cut back to Catherine's, where she gives him an earful of the fact that he didn't tell her he was back, and he never came by. And she pretty much tells him, like, you're part of the US military now, which she dislikes.
She went easy on him, though. Seriously.
Yeah. There are some remarks, but it is pretty soft.
Yeah. I would have chucked something at him. Like, seriously.
But she tells him that her father did research on the gate back in the 40s, because at that point they thought it was a weapon, but they never involved her in the research, except for Ernest.
Hang on. I wrote down very little use for a 21-year-old. I just want to point out that my grandmother was 18 and in the armed resistance and made to carry around pamphlets. I mean, I find it very weird that this scientist didn't find a use for his daughter, who was very obviously smart. She could have at least been in the room taking notes. It felt a little misogynistic on purpose. Like they tried to oversell the fact that she was not involved. Just, I don't know.
We don't really see her father much in the movie, only in one of the flashbacks where they find the gate. But at that point, he seems like he's a loving father, but it's unexplored. So here they go kind of the opposite direction.
I feel like they wanted to keep her in the dark as much as possible, but they could have gone about that a different way, I feel. Because, I don't know.
Yeah, the thing that happens with the Bell Diver could have happened even if she knew about the thing.
Yeah,
they could have done that in secret, because they did it in secret anyway. So it's a bit of a...
They did it so secretively that they filmed it and sent the film to the Pentagon for safekeeping. Well, and this wasn't like, oh no, we filmed this and then it accidentally got into the archive. No, you had to actually develop film back then, so somebody actually made a point.
It still was a military organization in the 40s,
I know.
It was probably confiscated after the failed test. So, but okay. We flash back to her as a 20-year-old in front of a big fireplace with her lover.
Which was a very nice transition, by the way, because we start in daylight and they turn the camera and it's the same room. Like, and you know the actors are just in the same room. But they changed the lighting from daylight to, nighttime with a fire behind it.
I think most of the transitions back and forth were actually pretty well done. Like, it moved in and out of the story. They complete sentences, all that kind of stuff. Like,
but you want to say which actor it was, so go ahead.
Yeah, we were very surprised to find out that the actor playing Ernest, or at least the young version of him, is Paul McGillian. He will be Dr. Beckett in Atlantis.
And when he says we were surprised, what he means is he was very pleasantly surprised. And then I had to go, who is that? Because I am face blind. And he had to tell me who it was, because I do not recognize people.
His face was in the dark in the beginning. But when he started talking...
he has a very distinct voice. Yeah.
And an accent.
What? He's Scottish? What?
You couldn't tell? Anyway, the research has stopped at a point where the whole ring started spinning and the room started to shake, And Catherine starts asking him questions and gives him some pointers, like maybe you should continue, maybe it's normal the room starts shaking. And then they kiss.
And then we cut to a really close-up of Daniel. I'm like, ah! This is a very weird choice, but okay.
Catherine also tells Daniel in the present that it took a lot of work to get the Stargate program running again after 40 years. And Daniel realizes she doesn't know that they managed to turn on the gate in 45. She thought it was ended before that. So we cut to another flashback. Ernest and Catherine's father are at work in the kitchen. Ernest believes the symbols on the gate have meaning and is trying to work it out, but when Catherine enters to pour some tea, they stop. Cut back to Daniel in the present, showing her the tape, and we see that the man in the diving suit was in fact Ernest.
Dun dun dun! Who could have foreseen this?
And we cut back to her father in the past, telling Catherine that there had been an accident in the lab, some kind of explosion, and she immediately guesses that Ernest is dead.
Which is, a dick move of
Yeah.
her dad.
Well, yeah,
Like,
a bit.
he's not coming out great in this.
He could have told her at least part of the truth. I mean, she knew they were working on the gate, and she knew a lot more
he
than...
could have just kept it vague. There was an accident with the gate and we lost Ernest. That's not technically a lie. I don't
It's not
know.
like she didn't know they were working on it, so it's a
Yeah.
bit weird. And then in the present, she tells Daniel that he reminds her of Ernest because of his passion and not wanting to let go. And then Daniel pulls out some old photos that he probably shouldn't show her. They're enhanced pictures of the chevrons that they used when they opened the gate that day.
I'm always confused that they break rules left and right, and Hammond goes like, and then he never follows up on them. He's just like, it's fine. You shared vital information outside of base. It's okay. It's
It was
Daniel.
actually pretty funny. He takes out the pictures, and you were like, "Are you supposed to show her?" And then immediately Daniel says, "I probably shouldn't be showing you this."
Anyway.
Yeah, back at the SGC, Hammond is livid because Daniel brought Catherine into the base.
Yeah, but Hammond is livid like a parent is livid right before he buys you another puppy. That man has he cannot put his foot down at all. He's like, okay, but this is the last time. Now have some hot chocolate before bed.
But he immediately gets undercut by Jack coming in, hugging Catherine.
Everybody
and
hugs Catherine.
Yeah, they just start talking, and he even says oh, he's all bark no bite or something in that fashion.
Hammond's like, I'm standing right here.
Exactly. He's like, okay, I have no power here. But Jack also reminds everyone that it is her who was responsible for the program and most of their current knowledge of the gate, and that's actually a very good point.
It is a very good point. He could have thought of that when he ignored her for 6 months.
No, it was Jack who did this.
Good point. Yeah.
Jack said that, guys, this woman is responsible for most of the knowledge. And he has a good point, but because except for Teal'c, they didn't bring any new knowledge so
they keep
far in the
destroying it.
the 10 episodes we've had a little bit of world building, but most of
I have bad news about this episode. Anyway.
Catherine is also very happy to meet Teal'c. Apparently Daniel also told all about him.
Which is just Daniel, honestly.
And Daniel, of course, wants to go after Ernest with the address they have.
Yeah, because it turns out that no Goa'uld knows about this address. It wasn't in their database.
Yeah, this is something that Carter comes up with because she also enters the room and...
Also hugs Catherine.
Yeah, because she also knows her, which I thought was a very nice point to make. They all know her and they've all worked with her before, so kind of deepening some of the connections, even though we haven't seen it. I thought it was really nice. But yeah, you're right. Carter does mention that the address was not on the cartouche they found in Abydos. So that means no Goa'uld ever visited it.
I don't know. I mean, it's possible Noah Gould has ever visited there, but I don't like how Daniel is also, this proves irrecoverably, that's not the word.
Irrevocably?
Irrevocably that, like, no, Daniel, that just means it's likely. Like, you're a scientist. Can you stop saying this has to mean this? That's not how science works. Anyway.
Yeah, it's a guess, but it's a good guess.
It is a good guess, but call it a guess. Call
Also,
it a theory.
apparently, and they explain why they were able to open the gate to the planet. It is very near Abydos, so the stellar shift was about the same for Abydos, so that's why the gate would also connect to that one.
And then they decide to take Catherine with them.
Of course, and Hammond agrees, like always.
Such a pushover.
But he was persuaded by Daniel.
I was already persuaded by Daniel, who just broke like 20 rules, dudes.
Yeah.
Do you have kids? And then, because it does turn out Hammond is a dad, Hammond is a granddad. You just know he's the kind of granddad. Comes back like, we bought a massive teddy bear, you know,
yeah.
and we just hope it fits in the car.
We drove past the pet store. We now have 3 cats.
Like, you know, granddad said it was okay. Like, you're never getting the kids, you cannot supervise. Like, anyway.
So we cut to the gate room where Catherine is watching in wonder at the gate, and Jack and Daniel both support her as they step through. We get the nice long, well, not the very long, but the nice long wormhole, and they step through on the other side in a, well, I wrote down a big cold room because it was very bluish in light and tone, but like moments later they were like, it's warm in here. I was like, oh, okay. Guess I was wrong. It's an empty room. It's also crumbling and falling apart, but there is a DHD in the back. And
There is also a very naked man.
yeah. He appears as a silhouette in the in one of the doorways and comes into the room, and it's a very old man. So you guessed it, Ernest.
What? Yes.
What he ate during those 40 years, I have no idea.
He shows it. He actually gives Daniel some food.
Oh, right, that's true.
And it looked like a very deep purple bell pepper. I don't know why I was so fixated on it. It's like, what is this? Like, what did they use for this? It just looked like an eggplant and a bell pepper had a baby.
I also love that he comes in and he like puts up his glasses because he thinks he's imagining the fact that there's people there.
And then he hugs people.
Yeah.
Wow, they're like naked.
Yeah.
And Samantha's like, oh boy, and she just jumps out of his way. So Teal gets hugged and Teal's like, what is happening? Humans are so strange.
Yeah, and then Daniel points towards Catherine, and she thinks he doesn't recognize him, but he does, and Ernest just runs off. So Daniel...
No. He doesn't just run off. He goes, huh, and then he runs off, which is somehow worse. Like, this is your fiance.
Yeah, and Daniel just goes after him, and at this point we cut to an exterior shot of a big castle on a seaside cliff, and there's already like a part of it missing. And it's very dark and rainy weather. There's a storm approaching. Daniel walks through the empty hallways until he finds Ernest again, and he asks him to put some clothes on.
Thank you, Daniel.
So he puts on the remains of his old diving suits. And then Ernest asks if they are going home and why it took so long. So Daniel says, like, it's a whole story, and wonders, like, are you alone in here? And apparently he was there on his own for about 50 years. Catherine...
52 years. I did the math.
Good for you. Catherine is amazed he's still there at all, and how her heart reacted to seeing him again. Carter mentioned that she thinks that the heart never grows old.
It was so cute.
Yeah, that's why I wrote it down. It's like
Carter's such a romantic,
especially
at heart.
coming from Carter. Like, she's the scientist, and
but
her
then
being the one
sometimes-
pointing that out is like, yeah.
But she
it's-
always had hearts. And yeah.
And then Ernest shows Daniel how he kept himself, how he kept time all these years. Apparently, he has like papers full of just lines. It's a calendar, okay.
I always feel sort of bad. Like, somebody from the props department had to make that. And it looks really good. It's weathered. It's like 5, 6 sheets of just, lines. And then Daniel goes like this and he puts it to the side. I'm like, Daniel, have some respect. Somebody made that. Somebody put a lot of work in that.
Yeah. Daniel asks him if he figured out where he is or where they are, and he tells him Heliopolis. It's an ancient Egyptian city, a repository of knowledge, according to history or legend.
Daniel has this thing that he does that somehow it makes him sound like an NPC from a video game. Like whenever they think the audience doesn't know something, he goes into this, of course, here's the definition, or of course, here's an explanation.
Yes.
And I can just imagine sitting there just mashing buttons like, I know this, Daniel, just get to the point.
Well, I did like that they again tied back to the old Egyptian stuff.
And you do need those little explanations, but he has this specific voice that he does when he does them.
The teacher voice.
Yeah, the teacher voice, exactly.
Ernest shows him his notes, like he has a diary, and Daniel reads it, and he's talking about how Catherine is there with him. At this point, Catherine comes into the room, and Daniel just leaves hurriedly.
He doesn't just leave. He's like, I'll leave you two alone, but I'm taking this book. It's such a Daniel thing to do. Like, oh no, emotional things happening. I'll just go, but yoink.
Yeah, and what follows is an intriguing but a bit of an awkward conversation, because Ernest, in his mind, he had this persona of Catherine there with him to keep him company, and that's why he wrote all of her dialogue or all the things she said in his head.
It was very heartbreaking when he goes, you forgave me long ago. And she's going, no, I couldn't imagine you. I couldn't make all of this up. And you could just...
for her, he was dead, so she didn't have those fantasies about him.
And you can just see, and it was heartbreaking. They played that really well. It was...
So in the gate room, they are looking at the place, but a big storm is approaching. Ernest tells them it returns every year, and he also tells them that they never managed to get the gate going again. At which point Daniel points at the dial home device and asks why he never tried using it.
And then he goes, we call this the dial home device. I'm like, Daniel, honestly... That is the stupidest name to go into explanatory mode over. Anyway.
Yeah, and they rush towards it, but they notice that they just see that the big red crystal in the middle is broken.
This is why you need flying drones before you go to a planet.
Yeah, but Jack immediately goes like, don't we have a map to look for these kind of things? But they immediately say like, well, we saw the DHD, so we guessed it was fine.
Yeah. That happens.
Say they didn't see the damage. And then Catherine turns to Ernest and asks, is this the reason why you never came home? So Teal'c and Carter start figuring out if they can get the DHD working again, and Ernest wants to show them in his words, the safest room in the castle. It is a big room, and it's a bit circular, and there are 4 languages written on the wall, all different ones. And in his diary, Ernest theorizes that 4 ancient races came together in this place in the past. Carter, meanwhile, wants to connect the power source of the DHD to the gate and dial manually. Then we cut back to the other room where Jack activates a central device and a hologram appears, and they're all electrons, graphical representations of elements. Apparently there are the hologram has 146 elements, at which point Catherine says there are only 111 on their periodic table.
Periodic table.
Yeah. Ernest says in his time there were only 90, and I went online for a moment to check, and at this point in 2025 there are 118.
Which is kind of lame. That means they only managed to get 7 more in over 25 years. I mean, pick up the pace, dude. It's like we have a ways to go.
Well, it was 97, so...
Yeah, exactly.
And now we're... I thought I wanted to look that up just to see how far we got But we're not there yet. We're not one of the...
Well, nobody says there are 146.
No, I know, because I was also reading why there are no more, so I think they just plucked that number out of thin air. Catherine finds it amazing that 4 alien races would represent something in the same way, but Daniel theorizes that these are just common elements, so it is kind of a uniform language.
Again, it's a theory, Daniel. It's not a fact.
But there's nobody there to ask, so...
No, I know, but he always says, this must be, like, no. Anyway, sorry. I interrupted
It's fine. Ernest calls this device a book, and there are many pages to read, and he never managed to read it completely. Jack, at this point, reminds everyone that it doesn't mean squat if they don't get out of there. Always the practical one.
Yes.
Meanwhile, in the gate room, Carter and Tilk have taken apart the MALP and are trying to connect the DHD to the gate. The building is more and more falling apart around them. They activate the DHD and the gate starts humming, but after some lights come on, it just stops. And their attempt has destabilized the building. The ceiling collapses and takes the DHD with it down into the ocean.
And Jack pulls Samantha Carter out of harm's way, because that's just who Jack is, pulling people out of harm's way since 1997. Well, before that, I'm pretty sure he does it in the movie too.
Yeah, and probably as MacGyver as well. So
yeah.
Daniel and Ernest are in the other room talking about how humans have been around a while, and Daniel also recognizes the writing of Thor's race on the walls. Ernest is surprised that Thor is an alien. He goes like, Thor's an alien? And then Daniel just brushes it off. Like, in the gate room, Carter surmises that the gate absorbs energy directly. They only need power. Jack says, I don't see an outlet anywhere.
No, Carter says, I don't see an outlet anywhere.
Oh.
But I love how Jack goes, okay, what do we have and what do we need? And Teal just goes, we have a gate. We need a dialing device, because he doesn't understand the trick of this exercise. He's just like, okay, you asked a stupid question, but I'm just going to answer it because that's, But then Carter gives his whole spiel, and Jack manages to get her to break it down so he can understand it enough to say, okay, so what we need is power. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was very nice. You have these little interactions that they really work well together.
I also like the fact that the gate is, I'm not sure if they already told this, but it's superconductive. Mm-hmm. Something that will be built upon again later on.
And there's a storm outside.
I wonder what they will do. They only showed it in the opening credits of every episode.
True.
In the book, Daniel and Ernest are still reading the language. Sorry, in the book room, Daniel and Ernest are still reading the languages, but the rest of the team comes in and they want to take the power source of the book to activate the gate. Daniel throws a fit, refuses. He's like, the meaning of life is in here. But then they just talk sense into him and he relents.
He's like, Daniel, move to the side.
He gave up fast.
Yeah.
He relents really fast. And then Tilk shoots the device, but it doesn't do anything.
And they don't even try to take a screwdriver to it. I mean, it's like, well, that didn't work. Like, really?
Yeah, first try is shooting it. It's like, oh, that doesn't work.
You obviously have tools with you, because Carter took apart the entire MALP thing to get all the cables out. So, like, why? I just really would have wanted her to stand there and be a screwdriver.
Yeah, but it's one of the Asian races. They probably have a really weird screw head that you need.
So you have to shoot it? I mean, anyway, they gave up really fast.
Yeah, and then Daniel goes like, now what? And Jack is like, I'm no scientist, but can't we try that Ben Franklin thing?
Which I am wondering about. Do they still teach Ben Franklin in school?
Probably.
Like, if you saw this in 2025, would you be like, who the frick is Ben Franklin?
But the story about... Even here, it doesn't get taught in school, but we know the story about the kite and the lightning strike.
Yeah, true. Anyway.
Carter starts formulating the plan in the gate room. They'll have to put an antenna on the roof.
But they didn't have that as a location, so we don't see that actually happening. But it's okay. Yeah. We have a shot where they hand over the bell helmets from one person to another to use as an antenna. Also, Daniel is writing in someone else's book with a pen.
That one ticked you off, right?
It took me. This is this man's life's work. He's been stuck on this planet. He's been using his paper very sparingly to make to translate this book, or to at least write this book down. And Daniel takes a pen to it. I'm like, ooh.
Catherine and Ernest are talking, and she tells him that Daniel is becoming more and more obsessed with the book, a bit like Ernest was in his youth. He calls it the Torment of Tantalus, so title drop of the episode.
Dun, dun, dun.
But he, at this point, and he probably because of his age, realizes that he has lost a lot by chasing knowledge.
Like pants.
Yeah. And at this point, he takes his old helmet and gives it to Tilk to use as a lightning rod. And then Ernest goes to Daniel to try to convince him that it isn't worth it, that he knows.
And also, Daniel doesn't mention his wife at all this episode. Nobody does. Like, at least I felt like somebody could have gone like, really, you're gonna stay on this planet and just risk not going back? And then what, are we supposed to be looking for your wife now? Like, what's going on with that? He just completely...
I get that he gets so obsessed with it that he doesn't think about it, but it is a good argument to tell Daniel, maybe you should come with us if you want to find your wife.
Like, I would have... Like, if Jack would have gone like, what about Charade? That would have made sense to me.
Yeah.
But, but they get him to go along.
In the gate room, lightning hits the peak and it starts powering the gate. So Jack goes to get Daniel, but he doesn't want to go. He's not listening to either Ernest or Jack. All he wants is to gather all the knowledge. And then, again, Jack just gets angry and Daniel relents and follows him.
Wasn't it because Ernest says it's not worth it if you can't share it with people? Trust me, I know. I think that's what pulled...
Probably. I think what
end.
Ernest said must have been the turning point. So in the gate room, the gate is open and the rest starts going through. Jack and Daniel enter. The room at this point starts collapsing, so Carter jumps through while a beam falls from the ceiling and hits Jack and Daniel.
I actually love that Teal'c hesitates before he goes. But then he does go... when he sees that they're entering the room and there's nothing he can do. But Carter doesn't go until Jack orders her to go.
Mm-hmm. And then we cut to the SGC. There's still no incoming travelers and the wormhole starts glitching.
Yeah.
But at the last minute, Jack and Daniel jump through and they fall into the SGC as the wormhole disengages behind them. And then we cut to some time later where they are trying to reconnect the gate, but the last chevron does not lock.
It will not lock.
Yeah. Daniel is sad because of all the knowledge lost, but Ernest tells him there is still the diary. And if they come across some of these aliens, he just should ask them. And then Ernest and Catherine hug, and we have a fade to black.
Yes, and Ernest has no home, no clothes. And I just wonder, how does he file for, military benefits at this point? Like,
there's a lot of paperwork coming up for him because he's been officially dead for 50 years.
How do you even prove that you're you without declassifying stuff?
I'm not sure because
I'm overthinking it.
Yeah, probably. But it's a good point. I think back then you could say DNA, but they didn't have his DNA back then. So I don't know. I have no idea. But anyway, I was gonna say something, but I forgot.
Sorry. We faded to black. That's where we ended.
Yeah. So Catherine Langford is played by a different actress in the series. It's Elizabeth Hoffman, while in the movie it was Viveka Lindfors.
Okay.
Just wanted to mention, shout out to both actresses. They are both great. They have a different vibe, different energy, but like them both in the role. So, on the whole, what do you think of this episode?
I really liked the episode. It was a whole different idea. It was a throwback to how it got started. It gave us some nice character beats. It got really emotional, which I wasn't, it was very romantic in a way.
Yeah, but not in a...
Not in this
what do
Not
you
in
say?
a, how could you leave me
Yeah,
kind of way.
it wasn't cheesy
No.
or anything.
Yeah, exactly. It was very well done. And I really liked it. And I knew there was an episode coming up where they were like, oh no, the dial home thingy doesn't work. Like, I knew that was coming up. I just didn't realize that this was the first time that was going to come up.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked that they brought back Catherine. I liked all the stuff, like the footage they had from the manually dialing the gate in the 40s. Like, that was really clever. Really good use of the same set with some different dressing.
Yeah.
So that's smart. Yeah, it worked. It worked really, really well. It does show us a different side to Daniel, like his obsession with knowledge,
Yeah.
which is something that will become more his character later on. But it's nice to have a different side of him instead of always complaining about his wife. So
I know, but now I'm like, this is the point where you should kind of mention your wife, and then you
Yeah.
don't. Like, I don't know.
it's like over correcting, maybe
I
a
don't
little
know.
bit.
I think he just gets hyper focused.
He does do that. Yeah.
He does that, which I can't really blame him for because I too tend to hyper focus and then just completely, like, sometimes when I get into hyper focus, you're like, eat something, eat. Stop doing the
But
thing.
yeah, on the whole, I think it was also very well balanced. Like Teal'c and Carter don't have a lot to do, but they feel like they're a part of the story. So there's no needlessly focusing on characters that don't really have anything
No,
to do with
everybody
the
has a
plot.
job to do, and they do it. Like, Carter starts fixing things, Teal'c assists,
And Jack
and
has
Jack,
the solution.
Jack oversees, but he oversees. He
also sees
realizes
the
that
solution.
Yeah, and he realized that Daniel is probably the weak link in this, so he keeps an eye on him.
I liked it a lot, and it has some solid world building. Again, this is the first mention of the 4 races, and that the Asgard. Okay, we don't know they're the Asgard yet, but Thor's race is one of the 4 races. So
And the writing on the walls, like, we will see all of those back,
Yeah.
linked to specific races.
yeah.
So that's
So it's pretty
very
cool that
too.
they're already putting those puzzle pieces on the table, even if we're not gonna get there for a couple of seasons.
Yeah,
And the furlings, we have a long way to go for the furlings.
I forgot about the furlings. Who are those?
They only show up in the 200th episode as a joke. They're like Ewok teddy bears that get blown up in the beginning of the episode.
What? No, I forgot about that.
And it's like an incredible joke. Like, it opens up and it goes like, it even says previously on, and you see the furlings, and then you go like, I don't remember this.
Wait, is this the one where they're filming a series of
Yeah.
Stargate within
No,
the world
movie.
of Stargate?
It's a second one.
Oh gosh.
So you think, you're like, did I miss an episode?
Yeah, and then they're like, and
then
then the SG-1 shows up, and they're like these caricatures.
Yeah.
I am very tired. Words are hard.
Anyway, let's wrap this episode up.
Yes.
This was a solid one. I liked it. So, to end this one, where can people find you on the internet?
Oh, and I was just gonna say in bed because I'm very tired. On the interwebs, I am Evie Belknap on Blue Sky and on TikTok and on Instagram.
And I am Iridonian on YouTube and on Blue Sky, and you can find me as Arne Köstermans on Instagram.
Is this where we wave?
This is where we wave goodbye and to see you next week.